Hey everybody, it's Josh from Broke Ass Gamecast, and we are doing our very first ever video review. We're trying something new for my Final Fantasy VII Remake review, because quite frankly, it deserves a lot more than just a few written paragraphs. So, hope you enjoy this video, and let's get right to it. If you're new to Final Fantasy VII or haven't played the original since 1997, I'm going to try to break it down for you. So, this remake is a giant expanded retelling of the very first 5 hours or so of the original game, which has kind of become known as the Midgar section, which is the only section of the original game that I've ever fully played through. It's not even quite, I think, like 5 hours long. And this new game I just finished in about 40 hours or so. And I won't be making any real comparisons to the original game for the most part. So this Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII takes place in this giant city of Midgar. It's basically kind of a two-layered cake of a city where the top layer is a circle split into sectors similar to like a clock, and the bottom layer is the slums of each sector. Each of those sectors has a giant reactor that sucks this Mako energy, is what they call it, out of this planet that they're on. Basically, this Mako is the lifeblood of the planet. And there's this giant evil corporation called Shinra that has been mining this Mako forever. So the main protagonist of Final Fantasy VII is a mercenary and ex-soldier named Cloud Strife. And at the very beginning of the game, we open with Cloud on a mission with Avalanche to blow up one of these mining reactors in one of the sectors. He is on a mission with this, it's basically an eco-terrorist group called Avalanche, to blow up one of these reactors to stop Shinra's wrongdoing and mining of the planet in this particular sector. They want to destroy all of these reactors is their ultimate goal, just so they can free the planet from that mining. So I mentioned Cloud was an ex-soldier. Basically what that means is Cloud was willingly experimented on with Mako by Shinra. And then he eventually quit and left the Shinra army. If you are familiar with the Final Fantasy VII story, you know that there is a ton to dig in there, and it's not all cut and dry. There's a lot of mystery and stuff there, but I'm not going to get into that rabbit hole. At the very beginning of the game, he meets up with a character called Barrett. He is the Avalanche meathead with a gun for an arm.
Hey, still in one piece?
He also comes across Tifa, who is the Avalanche bombshell, whose arms are just about as deadly as guns. And then a little bit later, Cloud meets this woman named Aerith, who picks flowers and will absolutely destroy you with magic. Together, they are seeking to infiltrate Shinra and take it down to basically save the planet. And also, Cloud has some mysterious beef with this guy. So the combat system here in Final Fantasy VII is known as the ATB, or Active Time Battle System, which is what it was called in 1997 as well, but this is a huge evolution from that original system. This new ATB system is essentially a mixture of real-time action and turn-based gameplay. It's kind of bizarre to watch, and even more bizarre to try to explain, but once you get your hands on it and start controlling it for yourself is when it clicks, and it really feels great. Honestly, I wouldn't mind one bit if this ATB system kind of became the new normal for RPGs like this. Basically, each character in your party attacks with a normal attack for a while, and as they attack, they build up energy to use a spell or one of their special abilities. And then you select them, you use that spell or special ability, and then you go back to your normal attacks until that meter builds up again, and you rinse and repeat. There are spells in Final Fantasy VII that come from what's known in-game as materia, which are these colorful orbs made out of concentrated Mako energy that get slotted into weapons and armor. So basically, Shinra is taking all of this Mako energy and turning it into weapons and magic. Also, of course, in true Final Fantasy VII fashion, there are all of your favorite weapons to choose from. Really funny oddball characters to meet.
Very nice.
Some really odd innuendos.
I'm here for the precious inspiration you took from the old dude.
Truly bizarre minigames. And cool summons. Dance numbers. And some really crazy creatures to fight. That's right, they made that dumb living house enemy from the original game actually work here in the remake.
It's just a house.
And it's probably one of the coolest fights in the game. There are also some new surprises that differ a bit from the original 1997 game. Again, I've only played a very short part of the original game, but I do know the whole story of Final Fantasy VII. I know all of Cloud's backstory. I know the Aerith stuff. And this game adds an incredible amount to that and to stuff that we had no idea about before. It makes it its own game rather than a shot-for-shot remake of 97, because nobody needs to do that. We all still have that game. They didn't just make that game look prettier. They really made it its own thing. It has a standalone message, it has a standalone concept and story, instead of just being one part of a much larger game. A couple negatives, I guess I would say, about Final Fantasy VII Remake are that the camera is probably the biggest issue, mostly in combat. It can be really finicky. It thinks you want to look where you don't want to. It's not horrible, but if I had to pick something, I think the camera probably could have used some more work. I often wish there was more combat. At least in the earlier sections of the game. It really starts to level out towards later, but for about the first half of the game, it really seems that it's either always a quick little small enemy fight that lasts about 10 seconds or like a massive boss fight that's really challenging, and for a long time in the game there's no middle ground. You don't get those kind of in-level enemies that are like a little tricky and you really got to think about. It's usually you either just murder everything or it's a big boss fight. But again, that does get better as you progress, so that makes sense. There's also nowhere really to grind for levels like you typically do in a Japanese role-playing game. You don't need to specifically in this game, but other than there's a coliseum you find and a training center, there's usually in a Final Fantasy game like a hub where you can go and just get random encounters until you level up to wherever you need to be, and that just doesn't exist in this game, which again works because you don't need it. You level up as the game wants you to, and the challenge is always perfect. It somehow finds a way to... I don't think I ever got a game over, but there are so many bosses where I was within an inch of my life. You're using your items, you're using your spells, and you finally pull out victory from the jaws of defeat. And it just works so well that they have this difficulty down pat. That it's not difficult, but it's certainly not easy. So then the question is, do I recommend Final Fantasy VII Remake? And I can say 100% yes. It is a phenomenal game. I enjoyed every minute of it. Is it worth $60? Yes. Yes, absolutely. I played it for 40 hours. I might play it again this year, this week, this month. I don't know. There's still some stuff you can go in and do after you complete the game, so I'm probably going to check some of that stuff off. But for $60, absolutely. It is completely worth it despite it technically being just part one of what Final Fantasy VII is. But again, it doesn't feel like that in a negative way. It's very Fellowship of the Ring. It's clearly the first chapter in a bigger story, but it's an incredible story standing on its own. Now, if $60 is too much, the original Final Fantasy VII game is $15, I think, pretty much everywhere, PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, PC. And under quarantine, you've got nothing but time to sink into that. I still really think I would recommend spending the full $60 and jumping into this fantastic retelling of the incredible story of Final Fantasy VII. It's probably what the creators always imagined that this game would be, and they were just limited by that 90s technology. What would be a quick cutscene in that 97 game, or just like a walk down the street, or a screen cutaway, becomes entire story branches, missions, even side quests, or a whole chapter, really, just in this remake. It really expands upon what was already just a fantastic world of Midgar specifically, and makes it better in every single way possible. And I cannot praise it enough. Buy the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Have a great time. It's absolutely worth it. Broke Ass Gamecast seal of approval, 100%. Thanks for watching.